Sarah's hands trembled as she counted out her last $5. The weight of unpaid bills and her daughter's empty lunchbox pressing down on her shoulders. When the elderly man ahead of her at the checkout fumbled with his wallet, coins scattering across the floor, something in his weathered face, perhaps the same quiet desperation she recognized in her own mirror each morning, compelled her to step forward with her precious final bill. "Please, take this," she whispered, pressing the money into his palm despite knowing it meant another night of hunger for herself. 3 days later, he reappeared at the convenience store where she worked part-time, sliding a sealed envelope across the counter with tear-filled eyes that reflected decades of untold stories. What was inside the envelope that made Sarah collapse to her knees in the middle of the store? Comment below with your own acts of kindness story. And subscribe to our channel for more life-changing moments that restore faith in humanity. The alarm blared at 5:15 a.m., and Sarah Mason's hand shot out from beneath the thin blanket to silence it before it woke Lily. She allowed herself exactly 30 seconds to lie still, eyes closed, gathering strength. Then she slipped from the pull-out sofa bed, careful not to disturb her sleeping 7-year-old daughter. Their one-bedroom apartment was barely 600 square feet. Sarah had given Lily the bedroom, while she slept in the living room. It wasn't ideal, but it was all they could afford since Mark's death. In the bathroom, Sarah avoided her reflection as she brushed her teeth. The circles under her eyes had become permanent fixtures, like the worry lines etched between her brows. At 32, she often felt twice her age. The kitchen told its own story of struggle. Sarah opened the refrigerator. Half a carton of milk, a few eggs, and condiments. The cabinet revealed a single packet of oatmeal and some crackers. She'd have to stop at the food bank again this weekend. Something that still made her flush with shame even after 2 years. She made Lily's lunch with the last slice of bread, peanut butter scraped thin, and an apple she'd saved from her shift at the diner. For the empty spaces in the lunchbox, she tucked in a note with a heart drawn on it. The stack of bills on the counter seemed to have multiplied overnight. Sarah picked up the electricity notice, stamped final warning, and slid it into her purse. Her next paycheck was still 3 days away. In her wallet lay a single $5 bill, all that remained after paying the rent. It was meant for bus fare to her 2 jobs for the next 3 days, plus Lily's milk money at school. Sarah peeked in on her daughter, a lump under pink covers, brown curls splayed across the pillow. Lily looked so much like Mark it sometimes stole Sarah's breath. She swallowed the familiar ache and gently woke her child. "Morning, sunshine," she whispered, smoothing back Lily's hair. "Is it Friday yet?" Lily mumbled, eyes still closed. "Thursday, baby. One more day until weekend pancakes." Lily's eyes opened. "With blueberries?" Sarah hesitated. "We'll see." Blueberries weren't in the budget, but she couldn't bear to say no outright. While Lily dressed, Sarah checked their calendar. The diner from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., then the convenience store from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. Mrs. Garcia next door would watch Lily after school until Sarah's brief window between jobs. Another day of barely seeing her daughter as they left the apartment. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "Can't send anything this month. Sorry, honey." Sarah closed her eyes briefly. Her mother's occasional financial help had been a lifeline, but her stepfather's medical bills had depleted their savings. "Mommy, are you okay?" Lily asked, her small hand slipping into Sarah's. Sarah squeezed it gently. "Just fine, sweetheart. Let's get you to school." At the bus stop, Lily noticed a tear Sarah had missed. "Don't be sad, Mommy. I can share my lunch with you." The innocence of the offer nearly broke Sarah. "That's very kind, but Mommy's fine. I'll eat at work." Another small lie in a long series of them. As they boarded the bus, Sarah stared at the $5 bill. 3 more days until payday. 3 days to stretch nothing into something. 3 days of pretending everything was fine. The weight of it all, the constant calculations, the endless worrying. The brave face suddenly felt crushing. Something would have to give, but it couldn't be her. For Lily's sake, she couldn't be the one to break. The convenience store's fluorescent lights cast a harsh glow over everything, making even the colorful candy wrappers look sickly. Sarah had 15 minutes before her shift at the diner started. Just enough time to grab Lily's forgotten pencils for her math test. The store was nearly empty, save for a teenager browsing magazines and an elderly man at the checkout. Sarah grabbed the cheapest pack of pencils and got in line, mentally calculating if the $5 could stretch to cover this unexpected expense. The man ahead of her wore a well-worn gray overcoat that had once been expensive. His hands trembled slightly as he tried to count out change for his purchase, a newspaper and a small carton of milk. Something about his careful movements, the way he meticulously organized his coins, reminded Sarah of her late grandfather. "That'll be $4.27, the cashier said, impatience edging his voice. The elderly man nodded, reaching into his wallet. His arthritic fingers fumbled, and suddenly coins scattered across the floor, rolling in all directions. He let out a soft sound of distress. "Sir, we've got a line forming," the cashier said. The man's face flushed with embarrassment as he slowly bent to retrieve his money. "I'm terribly sorry," he murmured, his voice cultured but fragile. Sarah immediately knelt to help, gathering coins from beneath the counter. As she handed them back, she noticed his eyes paled blue and filled with a dignified sadness that seemed to reach beyond this small humiliation. "Thank you, my dear," he said softly. Sarah watched him count again, his fingers shaking more pronouncedly now. He frowned, counting a third time. "I seem to be short," he said finally. The admission clearly painful. Without hesitation, Sarah reached into her pocket and pulled out her $5 bill, her lifeline for the next 3 days. "Please, take this," she said, pressing it into his palm. "Oh, I couldn't possibly," he began. "I insist," Sarah said firmly, despite the panic fluttering in her chest. How would she get to work tomorrow? What about Lily's milk money? The man studied her face for a long moment. "You're very kind," he said finally, with a slight nod that somehow felt formal, like a bow. The cashier took the $5, made change, and handed it to the elderly man, who carefully offered the coins to Sarah. "Keep it," she said with a small smile. "I need to get going anyway." She put the pencils back on a nearby shelf and turned to leave. "Wait," the man called. "At least tell me your name." "Sarah," she replied, already halfway to the door. "Have a good day, sir." "Robert," he called after her. "My name is Robert Winters." Sarah nodded and hurried out, the weight of what she'd just done sinking in. She'd given away her last money on impulse. It wasn't like her to be so reckless. But something in the man's eyes had spoken to her perhaps. It was the same quiet dignity she tried to maintain in her own struggles. She jogged to the diner, arriving just as her shift began. All day she served others food while her own stomach growled. She smiled and made small talk while mentally calculating how to get home without bus fare. How to explain to Lily why they'd be walking the 3 miles back to their apartment. By closing time, Sarah had made $43 in tips, enough to replace the $5 she'd given away, and still have bus fare for tomorrow. The unexpected relief brought tears to her eyes as she counted the bills in the break room. "You okay, Sarah?" asked Denise, another waitress. "Fine," Sarah said quickly, wiping her eyes. "Just tired." "You work too hard," Denise said, patting her shoulder. "Don't forget to live a little." Sarah nodded but didn't reply. Living a little was a luxury she couldn't afford. Not when surviving took everything she had. Outside, the autumn air had turned chilly. Sarah pulled her thin jacket tighter and hurried to the bus stop, thinking about the elderly man Robert tanned, hoping her small kindness had made his day a little better. In a world that often felt cold and indifferent, sometimes all you could do was offer whatever warmth you had, even if it was just $5 worth. Sarah unlocked the apartment door at 10:47 p.m., her feet throbbing after 14 hours of standing. Mrs. Garcia, their elderly neighbor, dozed on the couch with the television playing softly. "Sorry I'm late," Sarah whispered, setting down her purse. Mrs. Garcia startled awake, adjusting her glasses. "No problem, dear. Lily did her homework and went to bed around 9. She gathered her crocheting. She was asking about dinner tomorrow. I think she's hoping for something special." Sarah nodded, a knot forming in her stomach. Tomorrow was Friday, Lily's weekend pancakes. Expectation loomed large. Thanks again for watching her. After Mrs. Garcia left, Sarah checked on Lily. Her daughter slept peacefully, clutching the stuffed elephant Mark had given her on her 4th birthday. Sarah gently brushed a curl from Lily's forehead, her heart aching with love and worry in equal measure. In the kitchen, Sarah opened cupboards already knowing what she'd find. The oatmeal was gone. Lily must have eaten it for breakfast. All that remained were some stale crackers, a nearly empty jar of peanut butter, and canned vegetables. The refrigerator offered only condiments, half an onion, and the dregs of a milk carton. Sarah leaned against the counter, exhaustion washing over her. She hadn't eaten since her employee meal at the diner, a hurried plate of scrambled eggs 12 hours ago. Her stomach growled, but she ignored it, pulling out her phone instead to check her bank balance. $17.43. Not enough to make it to payday without dipping into the rent money. She slid down to sit on the kitchen floor. Memories of better times flooding back unbidden. 3 years ago, the refrigerator had always been full. Mark's engineering job had provided comfortably for them. They'd been saving for a house, planning for a second child. Then came the accident. A rainy night, a truck driver who'd fallen asleep at the wheel. In an instant, Sarah had become a widow at 29, with a 4-year-old daughter and no idea how to navigate a world suddenly emptied of her husband's laugh, his warmth, his steady presence. The insurance money had kept them afloat for a while. Sarah had tried to finish her teaching degree, but childcare costs had made it impossible. One by one, their safety nets had frayed and snapped. Their savings had dwindled, then disappeared. The car had been sold. They'd downsized from their 2-bedroom apartment to this smaller one, and still, it wasn't enough. Sarah wiped away tears she hadn't realized were falling. She couldn't afford self-pity. Tomorrow was another day of work, another day of holding it together for Lily. She pushed herself up and opened the pantry one more time, assessing its meager contents with renewed determination. The canned corn and green beans gave her an idea. The next morning, Sarah woke even earlier than usual. By the time Lily stumbled sleepily into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes, Sarah had a surprise waiting. "Good morning, birthday girl," Sarah sang out. Lily's confusion was immediate. "It's not my birthday, Mommy. It's your unbirthday," Sarah explained with forced cheerfulness. "And lookin' birthday pancakes." On the table sat 2 plates with what looked vaguely like green pancakes, drizzled with the last of their maple syrup. "What kind are they?" Lily asked cautiously. "Magic vegetable pancakes," Sarah said. "They give you superpowers." Lily giggled and took a tentative bite. The pureed canned vegetables mixed with the last of their flour and a beaten egg had created something that, while not delicious, was at least interesting enough to distract from its nutritional purpose. "What powers will I get?" Lily asked between bites. Sarah pretended to think. "Super smartness for your spelling test. And super speed for recess." Lily nodded seriously. "Can we have magic pancakes again tomorrow?" Sarah's smile faltered slightly. "We'll see. Magic has to recharge sometimes." After dropping Lily at school, Sarah headed to the diner for her shift, the gnawing in her stomach a familiar companion. One more day until payday. She could make it. She always did. But as she tied on her apron, Sarah wondered how long she could keep spinning straw into gold, turning empty cupboards into adventures, before Lily realized that what looked like magic was really just desperation dressed in a brave smile. Robert Winters sat in his leather chair, watching morning light filter through stained glass windows that had cost more than most people's cars. The grand Victorian mansion on Oakwood Drive had been his home for 47 years. Once filled with laughter and life, it now echoed with silence. He sipped his tea, wincing slightly as arthritis flared in his fingers. At 78, Robert had grown accustomed to the various complaints of his aging body, but he refused to surrender to them. Each morning still began with a walk through the garden, regardless of weather. Today, however, his mind wasn't on his routine. It kept returning to the young woman at the convenience store. Sarah. Her kindness had been so unexpected, so genuine. In a world where most people barely looked up from their phones, she had seen him struggling and stepped in without hesitation. And he had seen her, to really seen her. The shadows under her eyes. The careful way she'd held that $5 bill before giving it away. The worn edges of her coat. He recognized the signs of someone stretching every dollar. He'd lived that reality once. Robert stood and walked to the mantelpiece, picking up a faded photograph. A young couple smiled back at him, Robert at 22, and his late wife Eleanor at 20. They stood in front of a dilapidated apartment building, their expressions defiant and hopeful. Those early years had been difficult. Fresh out of college with a business degree but no connections, Robert had worked 3 jobs while Eleanor typed papers for university students. They'd eaten beans and rice for months. Some nights they'd had to choose between heat and food. Then came Mr. Abernathy, the elderly investor who had taken a chance on Robert's small electronics repair business. His investment and, more importantly, his mentorship had changed everything. Within 10 years, Winters Electronics had grown into a regional chain. 10 years after that, it had gone national. Eleanor had been by his side through it all, keeping him grounded as success transformed their lives. They'd had one son, James, who now ran the company. Their relationship had grown strained after Eleanor's death 5 years ago. James couldn't understand why his father refused to sell the mansion and move into a luxury retirement community. How could Robert explain that the house wasn't just a building but a museum of memories? That sometimes, late at night, he could still hear Eleanor's laugh echoing down the hallway. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "Mr. Winters." "Your breakfast," said Marta, his housekeeper of 30 years. "Thank you, Marta. Just leave it, please." After she left, Robert sat at the dining table, large enough to seat 16, now set for 1. His thoughts returned to Sarah. There had been something in her eyes, pride and determination. Yes, but also fear. The fear of someone walking a tightrope without a safety net. He knew that fear intimately. Before Mr. Abernathy, Robert had experienced that same gnawing terror of not making rent, of unexpected expenses, of the endless mathematical calculations required to stretch insufficient funds. He finished his breakfast and called for his driver. "The convenience store on Harrison Street, please, Thomas." "The one near the diner, sir?" "That's the one." During the drive, Robert thought about what he might say to Sarah if he found her. Would she think him strange, an old man seeking her out? Perhaps. But something about their brief encounter had awakened a feeling Robert thought long dormant purpose. The convenience store was busy with morning customers when they arrived. Robert entered alone, looking around for Sarah but not seeing her. At the counter he approached a young man with a name tag reading Kevin. "Excuse me, I'm looking for Sarah. She works here, I believe." Kevin looked up from his phone. "Sarah Mason? Yeah, but she's not on until 4. She's probably at the diner now." "The diner?" Robert asked. "Yeah, Jenny's diner, just down the block. She works both places." Robert thanked him and left, instructing Thomas to wait in the car while he walked the short distance to the diner. 2 jobs. The pieces of Sarah's life were beginning to form a clearer picture. The bell jangled as he entered. Jenny's diner. It was a typical small-town establishment, vinyl booths, formica tables, the smell of coffee and bacon permeating everything. And there she was, refilling an elderly couple's coffee cups, smiling warmly despite the exhaustion evident in the slump of her shoulders. Sarah hadn't noticed him yet. For a moment, Robert hesitated, suddenly uncertain about his impulsive decision to find her. What did he hope to accomplish? Was he merely trying to repay a small kindness, or was there something more, a recognition of his younger self in her? Struggles, a chance to pass on what Mr. Abernathy had given him all those years ago. Robert took a deep breath and stepped forward. Some decisions changed lives. He had a feeling this might be one of them. Sarah balanced 3 plates along her arm with practiced ease, weaving between tables at the diner. The lunch rush was in full swing, and she'd been on her feet for 6 hours already. Her back ached, but her smile never faltered. "Tips depended on it." "Cheeseburger, no onions," she announced, setting a plate in front of a man in a business suit. "Cobb salad, dressing on the side, and the turkey club with extra mayo." "Thanks, doll," said the suited man, eyes never leaving his phone. Sarah resisted the urge to correct him. Doll was better than some names she'd been called. Besides, he was a regular who tipped well. As she turned back toward the kitchen, she noticed an elderly man being seated in her section. Something about his posture seemed familiar. When she approached his table, recognition clicked into place. "You're Robert," she said, surprised. "From the convenience store." He looked up, a warm smile crinkling the corners of his eyes. "And you're Sarah. I'm glad you remember me." "Of course. Can I get you some coffee, please?" When Sarah returned with the coffee pot, Robert was studying the menu intently. "What do you recommend?" he asked. "The meatloaf is good today. Comes with mashed potatoes and green beans." "Perfect. That sounds wonderful." As Sarah placed his order, she wondered why he'd come. The convenience store where they'd met was several blocks away, and there were plenty of dining options closer to the upscale part of town where his clothes suggested he lived. Throughout her shift, she found herself watching him. Robert ate slowly, methodically, sometimes gazing out the window in thought. Unlike many solo diners, he didn't look at a phone or read a newspaper. He simply observed the world around him with quiet interest. When she brought his check, he looked up at her with those pale blue eyes that seemed to see right through her. "May I ask you something, Sarah?" She nodded, suddenly nervous. "Do you work at the convenience store as well?" "Yes, part-time. My shift starts at 4. He glanced at his watch. "That's in 20 minutes. Sarah sighed. "Which means I need to clock out now to make it on time. May I offer you a ride? My car is just outside." The offer was tempting, her feet were already killing her. But years of single motherhood had taught Sarah caution. "Thank you, but I'll be fine. It's not far." Robert nodded, respecting her decision. Of course. He paid his bill, leaving a generous tip, and departed with a polite nod. Later, as Sarah rushed to the convenience store, she spotted a sleek black car parked across the street. Robert stood beside it, seemingly admiring a storefront display. When he saw her, he waved casually, as if their meeting was coincidental. Sarah's shift at the store was typically quieter than the diner. She restocked shelves, helped the occasional customer, and rang up purchases. At 8:30, during a lull, she sat on a stool behind the counter and massaged her aching feet. The bell above the door jingled. Sarah looked up to see Robert entering, this time carrying a small paper bag. "Hello again," he said, approaching the counter. "3 times in 2 days," Sarah replied with a tired smile. "Are you following me, Mr. Winters?" "Robert, please." "And yes, I suppose I am, in a way." He placed the paper bag on the counter. "I brought you some dinner. I noticed you didn't eat at the diner." Sarah stared at the bag, torn between gratitude and pride. "That's very kind, but it's just a sandwich from the cafe next door," he said gently. "Please consider it repayment for your kindness yesterday." The mention of yesterday reminded Sarah of her $5 sacrifice. Her stomach growled traitorously. "Thank you," she said finally, accepting the bag. Robert nodded, seemingly pleased. "May I keep you company while you eat? Unless you have other customers." The store was empty. Sarah unwrapped the sandwich, turkey and avocado on fresh sourdough, and took a grateful bite. As she ate, Robert chatted casually about the neighborhood, the unusually warm fall. Nothing too personal. When she finished, he produced an envelope from his coat pocket. "I have something else for you, Sarah." "You've done enough already, please," he interrupted softly. "Just open it." Sarah hesitated, then took the envelope. It was sealed and surprisingly heavy. When she tore it open, she gasped. Inside was a stack of $100 bills. "I can't accept this," she said immediately, trying to hand it back. "It's $5,000, Robert said calmly. "And there's a note as well." With trembling fingers, Sarah unfolded the note. In elegant handwriting, it read, "47 years ago, a stranger's kindness changed my life when I had nothing. Yesterday you showed that same kindness without thought of reward. This isn't charity. My turn to pass on what was given to me. All I ask is that someday, when you can, you'll do the same for someone else." Sarah's knees buckled. She grabbed the counter for support, tears blurring her vision. "Are you all right?" Robert asked, concern in his voice. The bell jangled as another customer entered. Sarah quickly wiped her eyes and tucked the envelope into her pocket. "I need time to think about this," she whispered. Robert nodded. "Of course, I'll come back tomorrow." As he turned to leave, Sarah called after him. "Why me?" He paused at the door. "Because when you had only $5 to your name, you gave it to a stranger." That tells me everything I need to know about your character, Sarah Mason. The door closed behind him, leaving Sarah staring at the space where he'd stood. Her life, suddenly, unexpectedly, changed forever. The envelope burned in Sarah's pocket for the remainder of her shift. $5,000. The amount was unfathomable, nearly 3 months' rent. It could pay off her overdue electric bill, buy groceries for weeks, replace Lily's outgrown winter boots, and still leave enough to start a small emergency fund. Could she accept it? Kevin appeared from the back room for the closing shift changeover. You okay, Sarah? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, she said automatically, just tired. After clocking out, Sarah stood on the sidewalk, uncertain. Where to go? She couldn't board the bus with $5,000 in her pocket. What if she was robbed? The thought of losing such a sum made her dizzy. She pulled out her phone and called the one person she trusted for advice. Can you come get me? She asked when her mother answered. Something's happened. 20 minutes later, her mother's aged Honda pulled up. Diane Mason was 54, but looked older, her once auburn hair now mostly gray, her face lined with the same worries that Sarah now carried. What's wrong? Diane asked as Sarah slid into the passenger seat. Is Lily okay? She's fine, she's with Mrs. Garcia. Sarah pulled out the envelope. Mom, look at this. Diane glanced at it, then back at the road. What am I looking at? $5,000. In cash. The car swerved slightly. What? From where? Sarah explained about Robert, their first meeting, and his unexpected gift. As she spoke, her mother's expression shifted from shock to cautious hope, to suspicion. This doesn't make sense, Diane said finally. People don't just give away money like that. What does he want? That's what I keep asking myself. Sarah stared out the window at passing streetlights. But he seemed so sincere. Men his age. With money, they usually want something from young women like you. Sarah shook her head. It wasn't like that, Mom. There was nothing inappropriate. He talked about someone helping him when he was young. Still, Diane's hands tightened on the steering wheel. It seems too good to be true. They drove in silence for a while, both lost in thought. What would Dad say? Sarah asked finally. Diane smiled sadly. Your father would say to trust your gut. He always did. Sarah's father had died when she was 16, a heart attack at 45. He'd been a high school teacher, beloved by students, always ready to help anyone in need. He'd probably accept it, wouldn't he? Probably, Diane agreed. But he'd be careful too. At Sarah's apartment, Diane followed her inside. Mrs. Garcia had fallen asleep on the couch again, a cooking show playing softly on the TV. After Sarah paid Mrs. Garcia and saw her out, she and Diane sat at the small kitchen table, the envelope between them. I need this money, Mom, Sarah whispered. You know how tight things are, I know, sweetheart. Diane reached across to squeeze her hand. Your stepfather's medical bills have us underwater too, or I'd help more. I'm not asking for help. Sarah's voice was fiercer than she intended. I'm just trying to figure out what to do about this. They counted the money together, both gasping at the neat stack of bills. $5,000 exactly. Could it be counterfeit? Diane wondered, holding $100 bill up to the light. Would someone counterfeiting money give it away to a waitress? Good point. Sarah read Robert's note aloud again. It sounds like someone did the same for him once. Maybe? Diane still looked skeptical. But be careful, Sarah. Find out more about this man before you spend any of this money. Later, after her mother left, Sarah put a sleeping Lily to bed and sat alone. With the envelope, the responsible thing would be to wait, to investigate Robert Winters before accepting his generosity. But Lily had been coughing all week, and Sarah couldn't afford to take her to the doctor. The electricity might be shut off any day, and the $5,000 would solve so many immediate problems. Sarah divided the money, $500 for immediate needs, the rest hidden in a hollowed-out book on her shelf. Tomorrow, she would look into Robert Winters, but tonight, she would allow herself to feel something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The next morning, Sarah awoke to Lily's hacking cough. She placed a hand on her daughter's forehead, warm but not alarmingly so. My throat hurts. Mommy, Lily whimpered. I know, baby. We're going to see Dr. Martin today. Lily's eyes widened. They rarely visited the doctor except for required school checkups. But it's not time for my checkup. This is a special visit. Sarah stroked Lily's hair. And guess what? We're having real pancakes for breakfast. With blueberries. Real ones, not magic vegetable ones. Sarah smiled. Real ones. I went shopping early this morning. In truth, she'd slipped out at dawn to the 24-hour grocery store, filling their cart with essentials they'd gone without for too long: fresh fruit, vegetables, milk, eggs, chicken. The cashier had raised an eyebrow when Sarah paid with $100 bill. But Sarah had held her head high. For the first time in months, Lily ate until she was full, her eyes wide with delight at the abundance. And when Sarah called to make a doctor's appointment, she paid the copay without anxiety. The money was changing things already. Yet as Sarah watched Lily eating, a nagging worry remained. What if accepting Robert's gift came with strings she couldn't yet see? What if this momentary relief led to something worse? She would find out more about Robert Winters today. But first, she would enjoy the small moment of peace of being able to care for her daughter without the constant grinding fear of not having enough during her lunch break at the diner. Sarah sat in a back booth with her phone, searching for information about Robert Winters. The results surprised her. Robert Edward Winters, founder of Winters Electronics, a nationwide chain that had been acquired by a larger corporation 15 years ago. Estimated net worth, over $60 million. Widower to Eleanor Winters, father to James Winters, who now ran the family's investment firm. Philanthropist, with a foundation supporting education for underprivileged youth. Sarah stared at a photo of Robert receiving a community service award, looking distinguished in a tuxedo. The elderly man who had come into the diner and convenience store had seemed wealthy, certainly, but not this wealthy. Not someone who could casually give away $5,000. Sarah Denise's voice broke through her thoughts. Your order for table 7 is up. Sarah tucked her phone away and returned to work, her mind spinning. Why would a millionaire like Robert Winters take an interest in her? His story about someone helping him decades ago might be true, but there had to be thousands of worthy recipients for such generosity. After her shift, Sarah headed to Dr. Martin's office, where Lily sat in the waiting room with Mrs. Garcia. The examination confirmed Sarah's suspicions: simple throat infection. Nothing serious, but requiring antibiotics. She paid the copay without wincing, a novel experience. You seem different today, Mrs. Garcia observed as they walked home. Lily skipping ahead with her new sticker from the doctor. Different how? Sarah asked. Less worried. The older woman smiled. It suits you. At home, Sarah prepared a proper dinner: baked chicken, rice, fresh vegetables. As they ate, Lily chatted happily about school, seemingly energized by the proper meal and the relief of having medicine for her sore throat. After tucking Lily in, Sarah sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, remembering another kitchen table conversation years ago. Never take what you haven't earned, Mark had told her once, when discussing a friend who lived off his wealthy parents. It hollows you out inside, makes you less than you could be. Mark had been fiercely independent. He'd worked his way through college, refused help from his own parents, taken pride in providing for his family through his own efforts. Would he approve of her accepting Robert's money? Sarah's phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. It was her mother. Did you look him up? Diane asked without preamble. Yes. He's legitimate. Very wealthy. Owns a foundation. Well, that's something. Diane sounded marginally relieved. But still, Sarah, $5,000. To a stranger? I know it's weird, Sarah admitted. But I took Lily to the doctor today. I bought groceries. Real food, Mom, not just whatever was on clearance. A long silence followed. I understand, Diane said finally. I do, but be careful. Pride is expensive, but regret costs more. After they hung up, Sarah paced the small apartment. Her mother's warning echoed her own doubts. The money had already made a tangible difference in their lives. But accepting it felt like admitting defeat somehow, like saying she couldn't provide for her daughter on her own. Yet, hadn't she already admitted that, in 100 small ways? The food bank visits, the magic vegetable pancakes, the nights she went hungry so Lily could eat. Sarah's phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. "This is Robert Winters. I hope you don't mind, but I asked at the convenience store for your number. I'd like to meet tomorrow to discuss how I might further help your situation. No obligations, just conversation." Sarah stared at the text, her heart racing. Further help. What did that mean? She typed and deleted several responses before settling on, "Thank you for your generosity. I'd like to understand why you've chosen to help me specifically. Can we meet at Jenny's Diner during my break tomorrow at 2 p.m.? His response came quickly, "I'll be there." Sarah set down her phone, a strange mixture of hope and dread swirling in her stomach. The money had solved immediate problems, but accepting more help meant acknowledging something she'd been fighting against for years, that she couldn't do this alone. The next morning, Sarah woke to Lily's voice, clear and without the raspy quality of recent days. "Mommy, can we have pancakes again?" Sarah smiled. "Sure, sweetheart. But first let's check your throat." Lily's infection was already responding to the antibiotics. Her temperature was normal, her eyes bright. The immediate relief of seeing her daughter improving was worth any price to Sarah's pride. As she made breakfast, Sarah thought about her upcoming meeting with Robert. She would hear him out. She would be grateful for the help he'd already provided, but she would be cautious about accepting anything more. Her phone pinged with another text from Robert, "Looking forward to our meeting. I believe we can help each other in ways you might not expect." The cryptic message left Sarah wondering what exactly Robert Winters had in mind, and whether her desperate need for help was clouding her judgment about a situation that seemed too good to be true. But as she watched Lily happily eating pancakes with fresh blueberries, one thing was clear. For her daughter's sake, Sarah needed to at least listen to what Robert had to offer. Pride wouldn't keep Lily warm, or fill her stomach, or heal her when she was sick. Some battles weren't worth fighting, even for someone as stubbornly self-reliant as Sarah Mason. The diner was bustling with the afternoon crowd when Robert arrived. Precisely at 2 p.m., he wore a navy blazer over a light blue shirt that matched, his eyes looking more like a distinguished professor than a multimillionaire. Several regular customers nodded to Jim in just a few days. He'd already become a familiar face. Sarah approached his table with a coffee pot. "Right on time," she said, filling his cup. "Punctuality is a virtue my father insisted upon," Robert replied with a smile. "How are you today, Sarah?" "Better," she admitted. "I was able to take my daughter to the doctor yesterday. She had a throat infection. Is she improving?" "Yes, thank you." Sarah glanced at the clock. "My break starts in 10 minutes. I'll wait." True to his word, Robert sat patiently, observing the diner's rhythms as Sarah finished serving her tables. When she finally slid into the booth across from him, she looked both curious and guarded. "I appreciate you meeting with me," Robert began. "I imagine you have questions." "Several," Sarah agreed, "starting with why me. I found out who you are, Mr. Winters. You could help thousands of people with your resources." "Robert, please." He stirred his coffee thoughtfully. "And I do help many people through my foundation. But this is different. This is personal. Because I gave you $5. Because you gave me your last $5. He corrected gently. "There's a world of difference." Sarah's cheeks flushed. "How did you know it was my last?" I recognized the look. "I've worn it myself." Robert's gaze turned distant. "When I was 22, my wife Eleanor and I were barely scraping by. I had 3 jobs and still couldn't make ends meet. One winter night, our heat was shut off. Eleanor was pregnant with our son James. We were desperate." He paused, collecting himself. "An elderly gentleman, Mr. Abernathy, lived in our building. He found Eleanor crying in the stairwell and insisted on paying our heating bill. Later he invested in my fledgling business. He changed our lives with his kindness." "That's a beautiful story," Sarah said. But you're wondering what I want in return," Robert finished for her. "That's fair. I have a proposal for you, Sarah. But first I'd like to hear about you. Tell me about your daughter." Something in his gentle tone broke through Sarah's defenses. "Lily, she's 7, smart, creative, stubborn sometimes. She's been through a lot since her father died." "I'm sorry for your loss," Robert said quietly. 3 years ago, car accident." Sarah spoke matter-of-factly, the way she always did about Mark's death, keeping emotion at bay. We were doing okay before that. I was in school, studying to be a teacher. But afterward, she shrugged. Life happened, and now you work 2 jobs. Sometimes 3, when I can pick up house cleaning on weekends. Robert nodded, something like respect in his eyes. What would help you most right now, Sarah? Beyond the immediate financial relief, the question caught her off guard. No one had asked her that in years. Honestly, a chance to finish my degree, to have a career instead of just jobs. To give Lily the stability she deserves. That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. Robert reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. This is my proposal. Sarah opened it cautiously. Inside was a detailed document outlining an educational trust for her and Lily. A living stipend and, most surprisingly, a job offer. Administrative assistant at Winter's Investment Group, she read aloud, with flexible hours and full benefits. She looked up sharply. Is this real? Completely, Robert assured her. The position reports to my personal office, not to my son's. The hours would work around your class schedule, assuming you decide to return to school. Sarah's mind raced. The salary listed was nearly 3 times what she made at both her current jobs combined. The benefits included health insurance, something she'd gone without for years, relying on state coverage for Lily but nothing for herself. Why? She asked again, her voice barely above a whisper. Because I believe in investing in people, Robert said simply. Mr. Abernathy did it for me. I've done it for others over the years. Some investments didn't pan out. Some did, spectacularly. But I've never regretted giving someone a chance. And if I say no, then the $5,000 is still yours, no strings attached. This isn't an obligation, Sarah. It's an opportunity. Sarah stared at the folder, possibility and suspicion warring within her. I'd need to check references, make sure this is legitimate, of course. I'd expect nothing less. Robert wrote a phone number on a napkin. My personal assistant, Margaret. She can verify everything and arrange a tour of the office. Sarah tucked the napkin into her pocket. I need time to think. Take all the time you need. The offer won't expire. Robert glanced at his watch. I believe your break is nearly over. As if on cue, Denise appeared. Sarah, table 4 is asking for you. I'll be right there. Sarah stood, clutching the folder. Thank you, Robert, for everything. Don't thank me yet, he replied with a small smile. Wait until you've met my son James. He's somewhat less enthused about my personal projects. Later that evening, after putting Lily to bed, Sarah called the number Robert had given her. Margaret, a no-nonsense woman with a clipped British accent, confirmed everything. The job was real. The educational trust was real. Robert Winters had helped others this way before. He sees something in you, Margaret said. He doesn't do this lightly. After hanging up, Sarah sat on her sofa, the folder open before her. The opportunity was almost too perfect a chance to escape the cycle of poverty, to build a real future for Lily, to become more than just a survivor. But accepting meant admitting she needed help. It meant trusting a stranger, no matter how well-intentioned. It meant risking disappointment if it all fell through. Sarah closed her eyes, thinking of Mark. What would he want for her and Lily? Would he want them struggling but independent, or thriving with help? The answer, when it came, felt like his voice in her ear. Be brave, Sarah, take the leap. Sarah opened her eyes, decision made. Tomorrow, she would call Margaret and accept Robert's offer. For Lily's sake, and maybe, finally, for her own. The Winters Investment Group headquarters occupied the top 3 floors of a gleaming downtown building. Sarah had passed it countless times without ever imagining she'd step inside. Now, dressed in her only good outfitter, navy blazer and skirt she'd bought for Mark's funeral and barely worn since she stood in the marble lobby, clutching her purse with white-knuckled fingers. Miss Mason, a woman approached, extending her hand. I'm Margaret Wells, Mr. Winter's personal assistant. We spoke on the phone. Margaret was in her 60s, immaculately dressed, with silver hair pulled into a precise bun. Her handshake was firm and professional. Thank you for arranging this, Sarah said. Of course. Robert is quite enthusiastic about your joining us. Margaret led her to a private elevator. He would have met you himself. but he had a doctor's appointment this morning. Arthritis, she explained. He refuses to let it slow him down, but medical appointments are non-negotiable. The elevator whisked them upward, Sarah's stomach dropping. At the rapid ascent, when the doors opened, they revealed a hushed corridor of dark wood and soft lighting. This is the executive floor, Margaret explained, leading Sarah past elegant offices. Robert's office is at the end, with the view of the river. Yours would be here. She gestured to a smaller but still impressive office adjacent to Robert's. You'd be handling his personal correspondence, managing his schedule, and assisting with his foundation work. Sarah peered into the office, taking in the sleek computer, the comfortable chair, the window overlooking the city. It's beautiful. The position has been vacant for 6 months, Margaret continued. I've been covering the duties, but I'm officially retiring next year. Robert needs someone he can train properly. They toured the rest of the floor, meeting various staff members who greeted Sarah warmly. No one seemed surprised by her presence, or questioned her qualifications. Had Robert already told them about her? In a spacious conference room, Margaret finally addressed the elephant in the room. I imagine you have questions about the unusual nature of your hiring. Sarah nodded. I'm a waitress with an unfinished education. This isn't exactly a traditional recruitment. Robert has always done things his own way, Margaret replied, and he has an uncanny ability to see potential in people. 23 years ago, he hired me when I was a single mother working as a hotel housekeeper. I had no office experience, but I was organized and determined. She straightened an already perfect stack of papers. I put my daughter through college. On my salary here, she's a pediatrician now. That's amazing, Sarah said softly. Robert has done similar things for others. Not all worked out, I'll be honest. But those of us who seized the opportunity, ... double quotes. Margaret smiled slightly. We found our lives transformed. The tour concluded back at the elevator. The job is yours if you want it, Margaret said. Starting salary as discussed, benefits beginning immediately. You'd start next Monday, working alongside me for training. What about my school schedule? Sarah asked. I'd need to re-enroll for the spring semester. Robert has already spoken with the university. They've agreed to accept you back into the education program. Your schedule can be arranged around classes. Margaret handed Sarah an envelope. Your formal offer letter. Take the weekend to consider it. In the lobby, Sarah thanked Margaret and stepped out into the bright autumn day, her mind spinning. The offer was real. More than real, it was already in motion. That evening, Sarah sat Lily down for a serious talk. Something important has happened, she began, watching her daughter's expressive face. I've been offered a new job. A much better one. Lily's eyes widened. Does that mean no more diner? That's right, and no more convenience store either. Just one job, with regular hours. So you'll be home more. Hope filled Lily's voice. Much more. And there's something else. Sarah took a deep breath. I'm going back to school to finish becoming a teacher. Lily squealed and threw her arms around Sarah's neck. You're going to be the best teacher ever. Sarah laughed, hugging her daughter tightly. It won't be easy at first. There will be big changes. Like what? Well, we might move to a new apartment closer to my job. You might need to change schools. Lily's face fell slightly. What about my friends? You'll make new ones, Sarah assured her. And we can arrange playdates with your old friends too. Promise. Promise. Later, after Lily was asleep, Sarah called the diner and the convenience store to give her notice. Both managers were surprised but understanding. About time you found something better, Denise said when Sarah told her at the end of her final shift. This place was never gonna appreciate you properly. On her last night at the convenience store, Kevin actually looked up from his phone to say goodbye. Good luck with the fancy new job, he said, almost sincerely. Sunday evening, Sarah stood in her bathroom, staring at her reflection. Tomorrow was her first day at Winter's investment group. The woman in the mirror looked both familiar and strange the same. Dark hair and green eyes, but there was something different in her expression. Hope perhaps, or fear disguised as hope. You can do this, she told her reflection. For Lily, for yourself. She laid out her clothes for the morning, packed Lily's lunch, and set 2 alarms. As she finally climbed into bed, exhaustion and anxiety battled within her. What if she failed? What if she couldn't handle the job? What if Robert regretted his decision? Sarah closed her eyes, pushing away the doubts. For the first time in 3 years, she was taking a chance on something more than mere survival. That had to be worth the risk of failure. Her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Robert. Looking forward to having you join us tomorrow. Sleep well, and remember everyone has a first day. Yours will be excellent. The simple encouragement brought unexpected tears to Sarah's eyes. She typed back, "Thank you for this opportunity," before setting her phone aside. Whatever happened tomorrow, she was no longer alone in her struggle. That realization, more than anything else, allowed her to finally relax into sleep. Sarah arrived at Winter's Investment Group 15 minutes early on Monday morning, having dropped Lily off at school with promises to hear all about her day later. The security guard greeted her by name and presented her with an ID badge. "Mr. Winters had this prepared for you," he explained. Sarah clipped the badge to her blazer, surprised to see her name with the title, Executive Administrative Assistant. It made her position sound far more important than she felt. Upstairs, Margaret waited with a welcoming smile and a steaming cup of coffee. "Black with 1 sugar, correct? I noticed at the diner." "You've done your research," Sarah said, accepting the cup gratefully. "It's my job to notice details," Margaret replied, "and now it will be yours." She led Sarah to her new office. "Let's begin." The morning passed in a whirlwind of information, computer systems to learn, filing protocols to memorize, key contacts to note. By noon, Sarah's head was swimming, but Margaret seemed pleased with her progress. "You catch on quickly," she observed. "That's good. Robert doesn't like repeating himself." Speaking of Robert, he appeared in the doorway just then, looking energetic. Despite the cane he leaned on. "How's our newest team member settling in?" "Very well," Margaret answered, before Sarah could speak. "She's already mastered the scheduling system." "Excellent." Robert turned to Sarah. "I'm hosting a lunch meeting in the conference room. Would you join us? It would be a good opportunity to meet some key team members." Sarah glanced down at her simple packed lunch, a peanut butter sandwich and an apple. "I'd be honored," she said, tucking it back into her desk drawer. The conference room held 6 people, including James Winters, Robert's son. Where Robert was warm and approachable, James was cool and reserved, his handshake brief when they were introduced. "So you're my father's latest project," he said, his tone making the word project sound vaguely insulting. "James," Robert warned. "Quietly, just making conversation, Dad." James took his seat at the opposite end of the table from his father. "Ms. Mason, I understand you've had quite the career change." Sarah met his gaze steadily. "I'm grateful for the opportunity." "I'm sure you are." The tension was broken by the arrival of lunch, an elegant spread of sandwiches and salads from an upscale cafe. As they ate, the conversation turned to business matters. Sarah listened attentively, noting who spoke, who deferred, who challenged. Office politics existed even here, it seemed. James dominated much of the discussion, clearly intelligent and driven. Yet Sarah noticed how often he glanced at his father, as if seeking approval despite his confident demeanor. After the meeting, Robert asked Sarah to stay behind. "I apologize for James," he said once they were alone. "He's protective of the company, and of you," Sarah added. Robert smiled slightly. "Yes, though he'd never admit it. He thinks I'm becoming senile in my old age, giving jobs to strangers. There are others like me here. A few. Margaret, as you know. Thomas, my driver. The head of our IT department was once a high school dropout I met fixing computers at a repair shop." Robert tapped his cane thoughtfully. "I believe people deserve second chances, Sarah. Sometimes life deals a hard hand. That doesn't define a person's worth or potential." As the week progressed, Sarah fell into a rhythm. The work was challenging, but not impossible. Margaret was a patient teacher, and most of the staff were welcoming. Only James and his immediate team maintained a cool distance. On Friday, Robert called Sarah into his office. "How was your first week?" "Overwhelming," she admitted, "but good. I'm learning quickly." "Excellent. I have your university enrollment paperwork here. He slid a folder across his desk. Classes begin in January. 2 evenings a week and Saturday mornings. Will that work with Lily's schedule? Sarah nodded, touched by his consideration. Yes, Mrs. Garcia can watch her during evening classes. Actually, we have another option. Robert pressed an intercom button. Margaret, please send in Miss Chen. A young woman entered, her smile bright and professional. Miss Mason, it's lovely to meet you. I'm Audrey Chen, director of the Winters Foundation. After-school program. The foundation runs a program for employees, children, Robert explained. Homework help, enrichment activities, dinner provided. It runs until 8 p.m. on weeknights. Sarah stared at him. That would cover my class times perfectly. Precisely. Robert looked pleased with himself. Lily would be welcome to join. The children range from 5 to 12 years old. The program is at our center, just 2 blocks from here, Audrey added. We have certified teachers and a full range of activities. We'd love to have Lily visit next week to see if she likes it. After Audrey left, Sarah turned to Robert. You've thought of everything. I try to be thorough. He stood, moving to the window. Sarah, I want you to succeed here. Not just for Lily's sake, but for your own. Why does it matter to you? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Robert was quiet for a long moment. Because I see in you the same determination Eleanor had. My late wife, he clarified. She held our family together during the hard years. Worked multiple jobs, just like you. Never complained, just like you. He turned to face her. When someone shows that kind of character, investing in them isn't charity. It's good business. That evening, Sarah told Lily about the after-school program. To her relief, Lily was excited about the activities and the chance to make new friends. And, you'll be right nearby, Lily asked. Just a few blocks away, Sarah promised. We can walk there together after school, and I'll pick you up after my classes. As they prepared dinner together, a luxury of time Sarah had rarely had before, Sarah realized how much had changed in just 2 weeks. The constant knot of anxiety in her stomach had loosened. For the first time in years, she was planning for the future rather than just surviving the present that night. After Lily was asleep, Sarah finally allowed herself to cry not from sadness or stress, but from relief. The path ahead still held challenges, but she was no longer walking it alone. November turned to December, and Sarah settled into her new routine. Each morning, she and Lily walked together to the bus stop. Sarah in her office attire, Lily bundled against the growing cold. After school, Lily joined the Winters Foundation program, thriving among the other children and the enrichment activities. Sarah's work at Winters Investment Group continued to challenge and engage her. Robert was a demanding but fair boss, expecting excellence but providing guidance to achieve it. Margaret's training was thorough, preparing Sarah not just for current duties but for taking over when Margaret retired. Only James Winters remained a source of tension. Though never openly hostile, his skepticism was palpable in every interaction. Sarah tried to win him over with competence and professionalism, but his cool demeanor never warmed. One evening in mid-December, Sarah was working late, organizing Robert's schedule for the holiday season. The office was quiet, most employees having departed hours earlier. A sound from Robert's office caught her attention, a muffled thump, followed by a groan. Sarah hurried to check on him, finding Robert slumped in his chair, face pale, breathing labored. Robert, should I call an ambulance? He waved her off. Just my medication and my desk. Top drawer. Sarah found the pill bottle, shaking one tablet into his trembling hand and bringing him water. After taking it, his color gradually improved. Thank you, he said finally. Angina, not serious, but unpleasant. You should go home, Sarah urged. I'll call Thomas to bring the car around. Robert nodded wearily, allowing her to help him into his coat. As she gathered his belongings, a framed photograph fell from his desk. Sarah picked it up, noticing it was different from the usual photos of Eleanor that Robert kept. This one showed a younger Robert with a woman who wasn't Eleanor, and a little girl about Lily's age. The frame was newer than the picture, suggesting Robert had recently had it displayed. My daughter, Robert said quietly, noticing her gaze. Olivia, and my first wife, Rebecca. Sarah's confusion must have shown on her face. I was married before Eleanor, Robert explained, his voice heavy with old grief. Rebecca and I had Olivia when I was very young, just 20. We struggled financially. Rebecca worked as a waitress while I tried to build my business. Sarah handed him the photo. What happened to them? Robert's fingers traced the image. Car accident. Black ice on a winter road. Olivia was 7. I'm so sorry, Sarah whispered, a chill running through her at the parallels to her own life. It was a long time ago. Nearly 50 years. Robert carefully returned the photo to his desk. Eleanor helped me rebuild my life. She gave me James. But Olivia, double quotes, he shook his head. A parent never gets over losing a child. In the car, Robert seemed lost in memories. Sarah sat quietly beside him, respecting his silence while processing this new information. The revelation explained so much: his interest in her and Lily, his generosity, his understanding of their struggles. When Thomas pulled up to Robert's mansion, Robert turned to Sarah. Would you and Lily join me for dinner this weekend? Here at my home. I'd like you to see where I live. We'd be honored, Sarah replied, touched by the invitation. That night, Sarah researched Robert's first family. News archives confirmed the tragic accident in 1972. A young mother and child killed instantly when their car slid off an icy bridge. Robert, identified as a local businessman, had been hospitalized with injuries but survived. Further searching revealed that the Robert Winters Foundation specifically supported single parents and children who had lost a parent. The connection was unmistakable. Robert had been channeling his grief into helping others facing similar circumstances for decades. Saturday evening, Thomas picked up Sarah and Lily in the sleek black car. Lily, dressed in her best outfit and bubbling with excitement, had never been inside such a luxurious vehicle. Is Mr. Robert a king? She whispered to Sarah. Sarah smiled. No, sweetie. Just a very successful businessman who worked very hard. The Winters mansion took Lily's breath away. It's like a castle, she exclaimed as Thomas drove through the iron gates and up the curved driveway. Robert greeted them at the door, leaning less heavily on his cane than he had after his episode in the office. Welcome to my home, he said warmly, bending slightly to shake Lily's hand. I'm very pleased to meet you, Lily. Your mother speaks of you often. Your house is enormous. Lily replied with characteristic directness. Do you ever get lost? Robert laughed. Sometimes, especially at night. He gave them a tour, moving at a pace Lily could appreciate. The grand rooms with their antiques and artwork impressed Sarah. But it was the library that captivated Lily. Shelves filled with books, comfortable chairs, and a window seat overlooking the garden. You like to read? Robert asked, noting Lily's wide eyes. She nodded enthusiastically. I'm reading chapter books now. Mom says I'm advanced. You certainly are, Robert agreed. Feel free to borrow any books that interest you. During dinner, served in a smaller, more intimate dining room rather than the formal one, Sarah watched the interaction between Robert and Lily. He listened attentively to her stories about school and friends, asked thoughtful questions, and treated her with the same respect he showed adults. After Lily excused herself to explore the library further, Robert turned to Sarah. She's remarkable, bright, resilient, kind. Thank you. She's my whole world. I see that. Robert's gaze grew distant. She reminds me of Olivia. The same curiosity, the same spark. Sarah hesitated, then asked, Is that why you helped us? Because of Olivia, partly, Robert admitted. When I saw you in that convenience store, giving away your last money despite your own need, it reminded me of Rebecca. She would have done the same. He smiled sadly. But it's more than that. You deserved a chance, Sarah, someone to believe in you, as Mr. Abernathy believed in me. You've given us so much, Sarah said softly. How can I ever repay you? By succeeding. By giving Lily the future she deserves. And perhaps, he added, his voice gentle, by allowing an old man to enjoy the company of a child who brings back happy memories. That night, as Sarah tucked an exhausted Lily into bed, her daughter asked sleepily, Can we visit Mr. Robert again? He's nice and sad. Sad. Sarah stroked Lily's hair. What makes you say that? His eyes. They look like yours did after Daddy died. But they get happier when he smiles at us. Out of the mouths of babes, Sarah thought. Yes, I think we'll visit again. Would you like that? Lily nodded, already drifting to sleep. He needs us, she murmured. Like we need him. Sarah sat beside her sleeping daughter, pondering Lily's innocent observation. Perhaps this arrangement wasn't one-sided after all. Perhaps, in their own way, she and Lily were helping to heal Robert's old wounds, just as he was helping to secure their future. As Christmas approached, Sarah noticed subtle changes in Lily's behavior. Her typically bubbly daughter had grown quieter, more withdrawn. At first, Sarah attributed it to the natural exhaustion of the school season, but when Lily's teacher called requesting a meeting, she knew something more serious was happening. Lily's been having trouble focusing, Mrs. Weber explained, showing Sarah a folder of incomplete assignments. And she's been getting into conflicts with other children, which isn't like her at all. Sarah frowned, scanning the papers. This isn't her usual work. No, it's not. When I asked what was bothering her, she said she misses her old school and friends. Mrs. Weber leaned forward. Has there been a significant change at home recently? We've had several, Sarah admitted, explaining their improved circumstances. Without going into detail, I thought she was adjusting well. Children process change differently than adults. Sometimes success can be as disruptive as hardship. That evening, Sarah tried to talk with Lily about school. Mrs. Weber says you're having some trouble with your classwork. Lily shrugged, pushing food around her plate. It's boring, and she mentioned you had an argument with Sophie yesterday. She said I was lying about having a big library at Mr. Robert's house. Lily's voice trembled. But I wasn't lying. I know you weren't, sweetheart. Sarah moved to sit beside her daughter. Is that what's been bothering you? That your new experiences are hard to share? Lily hesitated, then burst into tears. One miss our old apartment. I miss Miss Denise at the diner and Mrs. Garcia and my friends at the old school. Everything keeps changing and changing and changing. Sarah pulled Lily into her arms, her heart breaking. In her focus on improving their circumstances, she'd underestimated how the rapid changes would affect her sensitive child. I'm scared, Lily whispered against Sarah's shoulder. Of what, baby? That it will all go away again, like when Daddy went away. Lily's small body shook with sobs. What if Mr. Robert goes away too? What if we lose everything again? The fear hit Sarah like a physical blow. Of course Lily would worry about that. Her entire world had collapsed once before. Why wouldn't she expect it to happen again? Oh, Lily, Sarah murmured, rocking her gently. I'm so sorry, I didn't realize you were worried about this. After Lily calmed down, Sarah called Robert to explain she'd be late the next morning. Lily's having a hard time adjusting to all the changes. I need to speak with her school counselor. Of course, Robert said immediately. Take whatever time you need. Is there anything I can do to help? I'm not sure yet, I'll let you know. The school counselor suggested that Lily might benefit from talking to someone professionally about her fears. Children who've experienced loss often develop anxiety about further losses. It's quite normal, but she needs tools to manage those feelings. Sarah nodded, adding child therapists to her mental list of things to research. The counselor also recommended establishing consistent routines to help Lily feel secure. Children thrive on predictability, especially after disruption. Regular meal times, bedtime rituals, scheduled activities, these create a sense of safety. That afternoon, Sarah left work early to pick Lily up from the after-school program, rather than letting her stay until closing. They walked to their new apartment, just 10 blocks from Winter's investment group, holding hands and talking about their days. I have an idea, Sarah said as they prepared dinner together. Let's create some special traditions just for us in our new home. Lily looked interested. Like what? Like Friday movie nights with popcorn. Sunday morning pancakes, real ones, not magic ones, she added with a smile. And a bedtime story every single night, no matter what. Can we call Mrs. Garcia sometimes? Absolutely. And visit her too. Just because we've moved, doesn't mean we've lost those connections. Later that evening, as Sarah tucked Lily in, her daughter asked in a small voice, "What if Mr. Robert gets sick? He's really old." The question caught Sarah off guard. "Well, Mr. Robert sees his doctor regularly and takes good care of himself. But old people die. Grandpa died when he was old." Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, choosing her words carefully. "It's true that Mr. Robert won't live forever. No one does. But the wonderful thing is that the help he's giving us now will last a long, long time. I'm learning skills at my job that no one can take away. I'm going back to school to become a teacher. These opportunities will support us," even if she trailed off, not wanting to directly address Robert's mortality. "Even if he goes to heaven like Daddy," Lily finished. "Yes, sweetheart. But that's not something we need to worry about right now." The next day, Sarah arrived at work to find Robert waiting in her office, concern evident in his expression. "How is Lily?" Sarah sighed, relating their conversation and the school's concerns. "I feel terrible for not realizing how anxious she's been." "Children are remarkably resilient, but they need reassurance during times of change," Robert said thoughtfully. "I faced similar issues with James after Eleanor died. He was 12, old enough to understand death, but not old enough to process it healthily. What helped him? Consistency, honest communication, and time." Robert tapped his cane against the floor. "May I make a suggestion?" "Of course." "Establish a regular time for Lily to visit the mansion, perhaps Sunday afternoons. The same time every week, nothing elaborate, just a comfortable routine. The library seemed to captivate her, and I have a collection of children's classics she might enjoy." "That's very generous, but I don't want to impose." "It would be my pleasure," Robert interrupted gently. "An old house needs the sound of a child's laughter occasionally." That weekend, Sarah created a large calendar for their kitchen wall, marking regular events in different colors: school days, work hours, study time, visits to Mrs. Garcia, and Sunday afternoons with Robert. She helped Lily decorate it with stickers and drawings. "See, we can plan ahead and always know what's happening," Sarah explained. "No more surprises." Lily studied the calendar solemnly, then pointed to Christmas Day, still unmarked. "What about this day?" Sarah hesitated. Their first Christmas in the new apartment, their first Christmas with financial stability in years. She hadn't made plans yet. "That's for us to decide together," she said. "What would you like to do on Christmas?" Lily thought for a moment. "Can Mr. Robert come here? He might be lonely in that big house." Sarah smiled, touched by her daughter's empathy despite her own fears. "That's a wonderful idea. Let's ask him tomorrow." Later, as Lily slept, Sarah reflected on how quickly Robert had become integral to their lives. For better or worse, they were now connected not just by employment or charity, but by something more complex and meaningful. Something that, despite Lily's fears, felt increasingly like family. The Winters Investment Group office transformed as December progressed. Tasteful decorations appeared in the lobby. A magnificent tree stood near the elevators, and subtle pine garlands adorned the hallways. Sarah enjoyed the festive atmosphere, so different from the plastic Santa that had hung crookedly at the diner. "Mr. Winters hosts a holiday gathering each year," Margaret informed her one morning. "Nothing extravagant, just employees and their families. You and Lily should attend." "When is it?" Sarah asked, checking Robert's schedule on her computer. "December 3rd. It's at the mansion, casual attire. Robert believes formal events make children uncomfortable." Later that day, Sarah mentioned the party to Robert. "Margaret said we should attend your holiday gathering." "Absolutely," Robert confirmed. "It's a tradition. Good food, some carols, small gifts for the children. Nothing ostentatious." "Actually," Sarah hesitated, "Lily was wondering if you might like to spend Christmas Day with us. Just a simple lunch at our apartment. She's worried about you being alone." Robert's expression softened. "What a thoughtful child. James and his family usually visit on Christmas morning, but they leave for his wife's parents by noon. I'd be honored to join you afterward." That evening, Sarah told Lily that Robert had accepted their invitation. "He'll come for Christmas lunch after visiting his son's family." Lily clapped her hands excitedly. Can we make him a present? Of course. What did you have in mind? Something special. Something he can keep forever. They decided on a scrapbook, filled with Lily's artwork and photographs of their Sunday visits. Sarah found a leather-bound album, and they worked on it each evening, Lily carefully selecting which drawings to include. Do you think he'll like it? Lily asked repeatedly. He'll treasure it, Sarah assured her. December 23rd arrived, with a light snowfall that dusted the city like powdered sugar. Sarah and Lily dressed in their best casual clothes, Sarah in a burgundy sweater and dark jeans, Lily in a green velvet dress with leggings. The mansion looked magical, decorated with twinkling lights and natural greenery. A 20-foot Christmas tree dominated the main hall, adorned with vintage ornaments and topped with a crystal star. It's the prettiest tree ever, Lily whispered, eyes wide. Robert greeted them warmly, dressed in a festive red sweater that softened his usual dignified appearance. Welcome. Come in from the cold. The gathering was indeed casual, with about 50 employees and their families mingling throughout the first floor. A string quartet played holiday music in one corner, while a buffet of comfort foods filled the dining room. In the library, a professional storyteller entertained the children with animated renditions of Christmas tales. Sarah recognized most of the employees, but was surprised to see James Winters and his family in attendance. In the 3 months she'd worked at the company, their paths had rarely crossed outside of meetings. As if sensing her thoughts, Robert appeared beside her. James comes every year, though he'd rather not. Tradition matters to him more than he admits. It's nice that he brings his family. Yes, my grandchildren are the highlight of these gatherings for me. Robert nodded toward 2 teenagers who were staring at their phones near the fireplace. Though they've reached the age where grandparents are decidedly uncool, Sarah laughed. I'm dreading when Lily hits that phase. Enjoy her wonder while it lasts, Robert advised. It's a precious thing. Later, as Sarah helped Lily select desserts from the buffet, James approached them. His expression was carefully neutral, but something in his manner seemed less rigid than usual. Ms. Mason, my father speaks highly of your work. Thank you, Mr. Winters. I'm enjoying the position very much. James nodded, his gaze shifting to Lily. And you must be Lily. I hear you're quite the reader. Lily looked up at him shyly. Yes, sir. Mr. Robert lets me borrow books from his library. Did he show you the secret compartment in the window seat? It has first editions of children's classics. Lily's eyes widened. There's a secret compartment indeed. I discovered it when I was about your age. For a brief moment, James's professional facade slipped, revealing a glimpse of the boy he had been. Perhaps you can ask him to show you next time you visit. After he moved away, Sarah whispered to Lily, that was Mr. Robert's son. He's usually very serious at work. He seems nice, Lily decided. Just sad like Mr. Robert, but in a different way. Once again, Sarah was struck by her daughter's perceptiveness. There was something sad about James at distance, a reserve that suggested old wounds poorly healed. As the evening progressed, Robert gathered everyone in the main hall. For a tradition, each child received a personalized gift from under the tree. Sarah watched as Robert called each child by name, presenting them with thoughtfully chosen presents. When Lily's turn came, she received a beautifully illustrated collection of fairy tales with her name embossed on the cover. It's just for you, Robert told her. Every child should have books that belong only to them. Lily hugged the book to her chest, then impulsively hugged Robert as well. Thank you. I'll read it every night. The unexpected display of affection seemed to catch Robert off guard, but he recovered quickly, returning the hug with gentle warmth. Sarah noticed James watching the interaction, his expression unreadable. After the gift-giving, the party began. To wind down, families with young children departed first, followed by others. Soon only a few guests remained, including Sarah and Lily. May I give you a tour of the upstairs? Robert asked Lily. I believe my son mentioned a secret compartment in the library. Lily looked to Sarah for permission, then nodded eagerly when Sarah smiled her approval. The 3 of them climbed the grand staircase, Robert moving slowly but steadily with his cane. The second floor held more formal bedrooms and sitting rooms, most unused now. Robert led them to a smaller library, cozier than the main one downstairs. This was my private reading room, he explained. And here he pressed a hidden catch in the window seat, is the secret compartment. The seat lifted to reveal a velvet-lined space containing several old books, first editions, Robert said, carefully lifting one out. This copy of The Secret Garden belonged to my daughter Olivia. He handed it to Lily, who accepted it with reverent hands. It's beautiful, she breathed, gently opening the cover to reveal a childish signature inside. You may borrow it if you promise to take special care, Robert said. I promise, Lily said solemnly. As they prepared to leave, Robert walked them to the door. Thank you both for coming. It's been the most enjoyable holiday gathering in years. We had a wonderful time, Sarah assured him. And we're looking forward to Christmas Day. Outside, snow continued to fall, transforming the world into a winter wonderland. As Thomas drove them home, Lily clutched her new books and gazed out at the glittering streets. Mom, she said suddenly, I think we're Mr. Roberts' family now. Not like real family, but like heart family. Sarah considered this. Would that be okay with you? Lily nodded, still looking out the window. Everyone needs a family at Christmas. Sarah put her arm around her daughter, marveling at how sometimes children understood the most important truths more clearly than adults. Perhaps Lily was right. Perhaps they were forming a new kind of family, one built not on blood but on mutual care and need. Heart family, she repeated softly. I like that. Christmas morning dawned bright and clear, sunlight glinting off fresh snow. Sarah woke early, savoring the quiet moment before Lily would burst in, eager to see what Santa had brought. This year, for the first time since Mark's death, Sarah had been able to provide a proper Christmas, not extravagant, but thoughtful gifts within a reasonable budget. Right on cue, Lily appeared in the doorway, practically vibrating with excitement. Mom, Santa came. They moved to the living room, where a small tree twinkled with lights, presents arranged beneath it. Sarah had stayed up late wrapping everything just right, enjoying the luxury of buying gifts, without counting every penny. Lily tore into her presents with enthusiasm: new books, art supplies, a science kit, clothes for school, and the special gift she'd asked Santa for, a bicycle, assembled and gleaming beside the tree. It's exactly what I wanted, Lily exclaimed, running her hands over the purple handlebars. Can we go ride it later? If the sidewalks are clear, Sarah promised, sipping her coffee and soaking in her daughter's joy. After the excitement of presents, they prepared for Robert's visit. Sarah made a simple but festive meal: roast chicken, potatoes, vegetables, and a chocolate cake for dessert. Lily set the table carefully, insisting on using the good dishes Sarah had found at a second-hand store. Everything looks beautiful, Sarah assured her. Mr. Robert will be impressed. The doorbell rang at 1 o'clock precisely. Robert stood on their doorstep, leaning on his cane, a small stack of wrapped gifts in his free arm. Merry Christmas. He greeted them warmly. Something smells wonderful. Lily took his coat and guided him to the living room, chattering about her new bicycle and books. Their apartment, while modest compared to his mansion, was comfortable and homey, decorated with paper snowflakes Lily had made and a popcorn garland draped around the tree. What a lovely home you've created, Robert commented, settling into the armchair Sarah offered. It's not much, but it's ours, she replied, still sometimes surprised by how quickly the apartment had come to feel like home. Over lunch, they talked easily, sharing stories and laughter. Robert described his morning with James and his family, a formal affair with expensive gifts and stilted conversation. They try, he said with a sigh. But James has always found holidays difficult. Eleanor was the one who created the magic when he was young. Sometimes it's hard for parents, Sarah said, thinking of her own struggle to maintain traditions after Mark died, especially when there are painful memories. Robert nodded, his expression thoughtful. Indeed, though I find as I age that I cherish even the painful memories. They're all I have left of certain people. After lunch, they exchanged gifts. Sarah had struggled with what to give Robert. What do you buy for a man who can afford anything? In the end, she'd chosen a handsome leather journal, embossed with his initials. For your thoughts and memories, she explained as he unwrapped it. You've shared so many wonderful stories with us. A perfect gift, he said, genuinely touched. I've kept journals most of my life, but haven't in recent years. Perhaps it's time to begin again. Lily proudly presented her handmade scrapbook next. It's pictures of us and my drawings and notes about all our Sundays together, she explained. As Robert carefully turned the pages, his eyes grew misty as he examined each page. This is extraordinary, Lily. The most special gift I've received in many years. Finally, Robert presented his gifts for Sarah, an elegant watch, beautiful but not ostentatiously expensive. Time is precious, he said simply, especially to a working student and mother. For Lily, a large flat package that revealed an artist's easel and high-quality paints. Margaret mentioned you enjoy art class the most at school, he explained as Lily gasped with delight. Can I try it now? She asked, already opening the paints. Of course, Sarah laughed. But let's put newspaper down first. While Lily set up her easel by the window, Robert turned to Sarah with a final envelope. This isn't a Christmas gift exactly, more of a practical matter. Inside was a legal document, an educational trust established for Lily, ensuring her college education would be fully funded regardless of circumstances. Robert, this is too much, Sarah protested quietly, stunned by the amount listed. Education changed my life, he replied firmly. It will open doors for Lily too. Please accept it as an investment in her future. Sarah struggled with conflicting emotions: gratitude, discomfort at accepting such generosity, worry about obligations it might create. Reading her expression, Robert added gently, there are no strings attached. Sarah, whether you remain at Winter's Investment Group for 30 years or leave next month, this trust is irrevocable. Lily's education is secured. I don't know what to say, Sarah admitted. You don't need to say anything. Just know that whatever happens, Lily will have opportunities. The phrase whatever happens lingered in Sarah's mind. Was Robert thinking of his age, his health? Was this his way of ensuring his support would continue even if he couldn't? From the window came Lily's voice. Look, I'm painting our family. They moved to observe her work, a childish but recognizable rendering of 3 figures standing in front of a house. The smallest figure wore a purple dress, Lily. The middle figure had brown hair, Sarah. And the tallest figure held a cane, Robert. Robert stared at the painting, visibly moved. Is that us? He asked softly. Lily nodded, adding careful brush strokes to the sky. Our heart family. That's what Mom and I call it. Sarah felt a lump in her throat. They hadn't discussed the term since Lily had first used it in the car after the holiday party. Yet here it was, rendered in bright acrylics on canvas, their unconventional family. Drawn with the simple clarity of a child's perspective. Robert cleared his throat, blinking rapidly. May I have this painting when it's finished? For my office? Really? Lily beamed. Yes, I'll sign it and everything. Later, as afternoon faded to evening, they sat together in the living room. Lily had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted from the excitement of the day. Robert and Sarah spoke quietly over cups of tea. Thank you for including me today, Robert said. It's been the most meaningful Christmas I've had in many years. We should be thanking you, Sarah replied, for everything you've done for us. Robert shook his head. You've given me something far more valuable than anything I could provide materially. You've given me connection, purpose, a sense of family again. He gazed at sleeping Lily, heart family, as she put it so perfectly. As Robert prepared to leave, he paused at the door. Sarah, may I ask something of you? Of course. If anything should happen to me, my health isn't what it was. Would you consider staying connected to James? He struggles with people, but he needs connections outside the corporate world. The request surprised her. I'm not sure he would welcome that. He barely tolerates me at work. James is complicated. Losing his mother, then watching me withdraw into grief for years. It affected him deeply. Robert adjusted his scarf. Just consider it. Sometimes the most unlikely people need each other the most. After Robert left, Sarah sat beside her sleeping daughter, reflecting on the day. Their lives had changed so dramatically in just a few months. From desperate poverty to stability. From isolation to connection. From merely surviving to beginning to thrive. And at the center of these changes was an elderly man who had seen something in her worth investing in, not just financially, but emotionally. A man who, despite his wealth and success, had been as hungry for family as they were. Heart family. The phrase kept returning to her. Not bound by blood or obligation, but by choice and care and mutual need. Perhaps that was the most authentic kind of family after all. January brought new challenges and opportunities. Sarah started her evening classes at the university, returning to education after a 3-year hiatus. The first night, she sat in a classroom surrounded by students, mostly younger than herself, feeling both nervous and exhilarated. I was afraid I'd forgotten how to be a student, she confessed to Robert the next morning. And had you? He asked, reviewing the documents she'd prepared for his signature. No, actually, it felt like coming home. Sarah smiled. I took detailed notes, participated in discussions. My professor seemed impressed. I'm not surprised. Life experience gives you perspective that younger students lack. Sarah's work at Winter's Investment Group continued to evolve as she took on more responsibilities. Margaret began her gradual transition toward retirement, entrusting Sarah with increasingly complex tasks. Robert regularly included her in foundation meetings, valuing her insight as someone who had personally experienced the challenges they sought to address. One evening in late January, Sarah arrived at the after-school program to find Lily deep in conversation with another child, a girl, about her age with glasses and curly hair. Mom, Lily called excitedly. This is my new friend Emma. Her mom works late too. It's nice to meet you, Emma, Sarah said, pleased to see Lily forming connections. Emma's mom is a nurse, Lily explained. She works at night sometimes. Single? Mom too, added Audrey Chen, the program director, joining them. Emma and Lily have become inseparable this week. As they walked home, Lily chattered about her new friend. Emma loves books too. And her dad died when she was little, just like mine. She understands about missing someone you can't remember very well. Sarah squeezed Lily's hand. It helps to have friends who understand our experiences. That's what I told her. And I told her about how we were really poor, but then Mr. Robert helped us, and now we're okay. You talked about that, Sarah asked, surprised. Lily nodded. Emma's mom works super hard, but they still have trouble sometimes, like we did. The next day, Sarah mentioned the conversation to Robert during their morning briefing. Lily seems to have found a kindred spirit. Emma Diaz. Robert nodded. Her mother Carmen works at Mercy Hospital. Excellent nurse by all accounts. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You know them. I make it a point to know all the families in our after-school program, Robert replied. Carmen Diaz works night shifts 3 times a week. Emma stays with her grandmother those nights, then goes directly to school. Challenging schedule for both of them. An idea began forming in Sarah's mind. Robert, what if we could help other families like mine, not just with the after-school program, but with more comprehensive support? Robert set down his pen, giving her his full attention. I'm listening. Single parents need more than just childcare. They need career development, education opportunities, flexible work arrangements. Sarah's words tumbled out as the concept crystallized. What if the Winters Foundation created a specific program for single-parent families? Scholarships, job, placement, mentoring, an intriguing proposal, Robert said thoughtfully. What would you envision as the key components? For the next hour, they outlined a new initiative. Robert called in his foundation director to join the discussion. And by lunchtime, the Single Parent Support Initiative was taking shape. We'll need someone to lead this, the foundation director noted. Someone who understands the challenges firsthand. Robert glanced at Sarah. Would you consider taking this on? Not immediately, you have your studies to focus on. But perhaps as a future direction, the offer stunned her. Me? I don't have the experience. You have the most important qualification, Robert interrupted gently. You've lived it. Everything else can be learned. Over the following weeks, Sarah dove into researching similar programs nationwide. She met with Carmen Diaz and other single parents, listening to their struggles and needs. Evenings were split between her coursework and developing the initiative proposal, In February, Sarah presented the finalized concept to the Winters Foundation board. Standing before a room of business leaders and philanthropists, including James Winters, she spoke with passion about the obstacles single parents faced and how strategic support could transform families. "This isn't charity," she concluded. "It's investment in parents who want to build better lives, in children who deserve stability, in communities that benefit when families thrive." The board approved the initiative unanimously, allocating substantial funding for a pilot program to launch in the fall. Even James voted in favor, giving Sarah a respectful nod as the meeting adjourned. "That was quite impressive," he commented as they gathered their materials. "Your personal experience lends authenticity to the proposal." "Thank you," Sarah replied, surprised by the compliment. "My father was right about you," James added, his tone difficult to read. "He said you'd bring fresh perspective to the foundation." Before Sarah could respond, Robert joined them. "Excellent presentation, Sarah." The board was thoroughly convinced. "It was a team effort," she demurred. "Nonsense. This was your vision." Robert turned to his son. "Wouldn't you agree, James?" Indeed, James checked his watch. "I need to get back to the office. Quarterly reports wait for no man." With a nod to them both, he departed. "That's as close to effusive praise as James gets," Robert remarked dryly. "You've made an impression." Back in her office, Sarah found a message from Carmen Diaz, asking to meet. They arranged to have coffee the following afternoon. "Emma told me about your connection with Robert Winters," Carmen said once they were seated at a quiet cafe. "And now I hear you're developing a program for single parents." "News travels fast," Sarah smiled. "Yes, the foundation just approved it." "Would someone like me qualify?" Carmen asked hesitantly. "I've been trying to complete my nurse practitioner certification for years, but between work and Emma... You're exactly who we want to help," Sarah assured her. "The program will include educational grants, child care support, networking opportunities." Carmen's eyes filled with tears. "You have no idea what that would mean. I've been working night shifts for 3 years because they pay better, but it's taking a toll on both of us." "I do understand," Sarah said softly. 6 months ago, I was working 2 jobs and still couldn't make ends meet. One act of kindness changed everything for us." "Emma says you call Mr. Winters your heart family." Carmen smiled. Sarah nodded. "Lily's term, but it fits. Family isn't always about blood." "No, it isn't," Carmen agreed. "Sometimes it's about who shows up when you need them most." As winter melted into spring, the Single Parent Support Initiative took shape. Sarah worked closely with the foundation team, building something that reflected her own journey, while addressing the diverse needs of others in similar situations. "You've found your calling," Robert observed one evening as they reviewed applicant criteria. "This work suits you." Sarah realized he was right. Beyond the job security and income, she'd discovered a purpose that aligned her personal experience with her professional abilities. What had begun as Robert helping her had evolved into something larger, a way for her to help others find their own paths forward. The circle of giving, she thought, remembering Robert's note with the initial $5,000. All he'd asked was that someday, when she could, she'd do the same for someone else. That someday had arrived sooner than either of them had expected. Autumn leaves drifted past the window of Sarah's office, her new office, with her name on the door. Sarah Mason, Director, Single Parent Support Initiative. After completing 2 semesters of her education degree with excellent grades, she had accepted Robert's offer to lead the program full-time, postponing her teaching ambitions to pursue this unexpected career path. The initiative had launched in September with 25 families selected for the pilot program. Each received customized support educational grants. Career coaching, childcare assistance, housing subsidies were needed. Sarah had insisted on a holistic approach, addressing the interconnected challenges that kept single parents trapped in cycles of struggle. Carmen Diaz was among the first participants, already thriving in her nurse practitioner program, while working more family-friendly hours. Emma and Lily had become inseparable friends, spending weekends at each other's homes. A knock at Sarah's door interrupted her reflections. "Got a minute?" James Winters asked, looking uncharacteristically hesitant. Of course, Sarah replied, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. What can I help you with? James sat, his normally perfect posture slightly slumped. It's about my father. Have you noticed anything concerning recently? Sarah considered the question carefully. He's been more tired than usual. I assumed it was just the change of seasons. The doctors are concerned about his heart. James's corporate mask slipped, revealing genuine worry. He won't discuss it with me, but I thought perhaps he might have said something to you. The unspoken acknowledgement of her special relationship with Robert hung between them. He mentioned some tests last month, but insisted they were routine. James sighed. That sounds like him. Stubborn independence runs in the family. I'll try to talk with him, Sarah offered, though he's not one to complain. Thank you. James rose to leave, then paused. Your program it's making quite an impression. The board is pleased with the early results. That's good to hear. My father was right about you, James said, echoing his comment from months earlier. You've brought something valuable to the foundation. After he left, Sarah sat thinking about Robert. At 79, he remained active and engaged. But she had noticed small changes, more frequent rests, occasional winces when he thought no one was watching, a new prescription bottle among his medications. That evening, she picked up Lily from the after-school program, now expanded to accommodate children from the initiative. Mom, Lily called, running to meet her. Look what I got on my math test. She proudly displayed a paper marked with an A and a gold star. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Sarah examines the complex multiplication problems with pride. At 8 years old, Lily was thriving academically, her earlier anxiety replaced by confidence. Ms. Chen says I could join the math team if I want to, Lily continued as they walked home, and Emma's joining too. Their new apartment was closer to Lily's school, and Sarah's office a spacious 2-bedroom with a small balcony where Lily kept potted plants. Sarah had gradually furnished it with second-hand treasures and a few carefully chosen new pieces. It felt like home now, filled with books, artwork, and photographs. Among the framed photos on the wall was one from Lily's 8th birthday party at Robert's mansion. The three of them stood beside an elaborate cake, Lily beaming between Sarah and Robert, all of them wearing paper crowns Lily had insisted on. Their Hart family had expanded over the months. Sunday afternoons at the mansion now often included Carmen and Emma, occasionally Margaret and her daughter's family, and even Mrs. Garcia, who visited monthly after Sarah arranged transportation for her. Robert thrived in these gatherings, his joy evident as he presided over meals and activities. Even James and his family sometimes joined, the teenagers gradually emerging from their digital cocoons to engage with the younger children. The following Sunday, Sarah arrived at the mansion to find Robert looking pale, sitting in his library, with a medical journal open on his lap. You know, then, he said when he saw her expression. James mentioned the doctors are concerned. Sarah sat beside him. What aren't you telling us? Robert closed the journal. Aortic valve stenosis. Not immediately life-threatening, but progressive. The doctors are recommending surgery, and you're hesitating because, at my age, the risks are significant. Robert's fingers tapped restlessly on the book's cover. The recovery would be lengthy, difficult, but without it, a few good years perhaps. Then a decline. He attempted a smile. I've had a full life, Sarah. I'm not afraid of its natural conclusion. But you're not ready for it either, she countered gently. Not with Lily just getting to know you. Not with the initiative just launching. Not with so much still to do. Robert gazed out the window at the autumn garden. When did you become so wise? I had a good teacher. Sarah covered his hand with hers. Have the surgery, Robert. Fight for more time, not just for yourself, but for all of us who need you. He was quiet for a long moment. I'll consider it. 2 weeks later, Robert entered the hospital for valve replacement surgery. The procedure went well, but recovery proved challenging. Complications led to pneumonia, requiring an extended hospital stay. Sarah visited daily, bringing Lily when allowed, keeping Robert connected to the outside world. She coordinated with Margaret to manage his business affairs, and with the foundation director to ensure the initiative continued smoothly. James, too, was a constant presence, their shared concern for Robert gradually building a tentative bridge between them. One evening, as they left the hospital together, he made an unexpected confession. "I resented you at first," he admitted, as they waited for the elevator. "My father has always collected stray people he believes need saving. Usually they take advantage of his generosity. And you thought I was another one," Sarah finished for him. "Yes," James looked uncomfortable. "I was wrong. You've given as much as you've received, maybe more. The way you've handled everything during his illness. He was right about you all along." The elevator arrived, saving Sarah from having to respond. But as they rode down in silence, she reflected on how much had changed in a year. From a desperate woman giving away her last $5 to the director of a foundation initiative, trusted by both Winter's men, building something meaningful from her own painful experience. In December, Robert finally returned home, thinner and more fragile, but determinedly on the mend. The doctors were cautiously optimistic, predicting a full recovery with time and rehabilitation. "You'll need to be patient with yourself," Sarah advised as she helped him settle in his favorite chair. "Patience has never been my strong suit," Robert grumbled, but his eyes twinkled with their old spark. As Christmas approached again, Sarah reflected on their journey, the struggling single mother and her daughter, the elderly billionaire with his mansion and memories, the unlikely connection that had changed all their lives. What had begun as charity had evolved into something far more valuable: a family, created by choice rather than chance, bound by mutual care rather than obligation. A heart family, as Lily had so perfectly named it. And from that foundation of support and love, Sarah had found not just financial security, but purpose, a way to transform her own struggle into hope for others, following the same difficult path. Convenience store hadn't changed: same fluorescent lighting, same faded advertisements on the windows, same slightly sticky floor. Sarah hadn't been back since giving her notice 18 months earlier. But today she had a purpose. Kevin no longer worked the register. In his place stood a young woman with tired eyes and a name tag reading, Maya. She couldn't have been more than 20, but her expression carried the weight of someone much older. Sarah purchased a few items, observing Maya's careful movements as she rang up the sale. When the total appeared $2,347, Sarah handed over a 20 and a 5. "Keep the change," she said, noticing the surprise in Maya's eyes. "Thanks," Maya replied. "That's really generous." In another life, Sarah might have simply left with a smile, and the warm glow of having brightened someone's day. But experience had taught her that sometimes a small kindness could be the beginning of something transformative. "I used to work here," she said, gesturing around the store. "About a year and a half ago." "Really? I've only been here 3 months." Maya glanced at the manager's office. "It's just temporary, until I can figure something else out." "Do you have children?" Sarah asked, noting the faint crayon marks on Maya's sleeve. Maya hesitated, then nodded. "A little boy, he's 4. Sarah reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "The Winters Foundation has a program for single parents. If you're interested, call this number and mention my name." Maya examined the card skeptically. "What kind of program?" "The kind that changes lives," Sarah said simply. "It did for me." Outside, Sarah glanced back through the window, watching Maya study the card before carefully tucking it into her pocket. Would she call? There was no way to know. But the opportunity was there, just as it had been for Sarah when Robert had handed her that envelope. Later that afternoon, Sarah sat in a coffee shop near the university, reviewing applications for the initiative's second cohort. The program had expanded to 50 families, with corporate partnerships providing internships and job placements for participants. Her phone buzzed with a text from Robert. "Don't forget dinner tonight. Lily insists on making pasta herself. Heaven help us all." Sarah smiled, typing back, "Wouldn't miss it. Bringing dessert from that bakery you like." 2 years after their first meeting, Robert had become an integral part of their lives. His health had improved steadily after the surgery, though he now used a walker instead of a cane and had scaled back his business involvement. The mansion had become their Sunday gathering place, with an ever-expanding circle of friends and chosen family. Sarah had completed another year of her education degree, taking classes part-time while running the initiative, though the teaching position she'd once dreamed of had been replaced by her foundation work. She still planned to finish her degree. Robert had insisted on it. Always complete what you start, he'd advised as Sarah drove to Robert's mansion that evening. Lily chattered excitedly from the back seat about the upcoming science fair. At 9, she was blossoming into a confident, compassionate child who excelled academically and socially. The anxiety that had plagued her during their difficult years had faded, though she still occasionally sought reassurance that their stability would continue. "Do you think Mr. Robert will like my science project idea?" Lily asked, as they turned onto Oakwood Drive. "I'm sure he will," Sarah replied. "He loves anything to do with electronics. I'm going to build a solar-powered car. Emma's helping me design it." The mansion appeared ahead, lights glowing warmly in the early evening darkness. Thomas, still Robert's driver, but now also his health aide, greeted them at the door. "He's in the kitchen," Thomas informed them, with a bemused expression. Supervising the pasta production, they found Robert seated at the kitchen island, watching Lily work the pasta machine under the cautious guidance of Marta, his housekeeper. "Not too thin," Robert advised. "It'll tear if you make it too thin." I know," Lily responded with the exaggerated patience of a child instructing an adult. "I've watched the cooking shows." Sarah leaned against the doorframe, savoring the scene. If someone had told her 2 years ago that her daughter would be making homemade pasta in a billionaire's kitchen, she would have thought them delusional. Yet here they were, the unlikely bonds of their chosen family stronger than she could have imagined. Dinner was a cheerful affair, with Lily proudly serving her slightly irregular, but entirely edible pasta to Robert, Sarah, and Carmen and Emma Diaz, who had joined them. Carmen, now halfway through her nurse practitioner program and working day shifts, looked years younger than when Sarah had first met her. After dinner, while the children played in the library, the adults gathered in Robert's study. James joined them briefly, discussing foundation business before departing for a business trip. "The initiative's second-year funding is secure," he informed Sarah. The board was impressed with the outcomes from the pilot group. 19 of 25 participants have improved their employment status, Sarah reported. 22 have completed educational goals, and all 25 report improved quality of life for their children. "Numbers matter to the board," Robert said after James left. "But the individual stories matter more to me. Like Carmen completing her first year with honors, while establishing a stable schedule for Emma." Carmen smiled. "I couldn't have done it without the program." The flexible childcare alone made all the difference. That was Sarah's insight, Robert acknowledged, understanding that practical support matters as much as financial assistance. Later, as they prepared to leave, Robert pulled Sarah aside. "I've been thinking about the future," he said, his voice low. "I've made some adjustments to my estate planning." Sarah began, uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. "Hear me out," he interrupted gently. "I'm not planning on going anywhere soon, but at my age, prudence is necessary." He handed her an envelope. "This ensures the initiative's funding, regardless of future foundation priorities. And there are provisions for you and Lily, separate from the educational trust." "You've done more than enough for us," Sarah protested. "This isn't about obligation, Sarah. It's about family." Robert's gaze was steady. "You and Lily are my family now, as surely as if we shared blood. What I have is yours not because you need it, but because that's what family does." Sarah accepted the envelope, knowing that refusing would hurt him more than her discomfort warranted. "Thank you for everything, Robert. Not just the material support, but for believing in me when I'd stopped believing in myself." On the drive home, Lily fell asleep in the back seat, clutching a book Robert had given her. Sarah glanced at her in the rearview mirror, overwhelmed with gratitude for how far they had come. From a desperate mother with $5 to her name, she had transformed into a professional woman with purpose, security, and a circle of support she could rely on. The journey hadn't been easy or straightforward, but each step, even the painful ones, had led them here. The next morning, Sarah received a phone call from Maya, the convenience store cashier. "Is this offer real?" she asked cautiously. The Program for single parents. Very real, Sarah assured her. We're accepting applications now for the next cohort. I don't have much education, Maya admitted. Just a high school diploma. That's where we start, not where we finish, Sarah replied, echoing Robert's words to her. The program is about creating possibilities. After arranging an interview for Maya, Sarah sat at her kitchen table, reflecting on the perfect symmetry of the moment. 2 years ago, a stranger had seen potential in her when she could only see struggle. Now she was in a position to do the same for others. She thought of Robert's note that had accompanied his initial gift. 47 years ago, a stranger's kindness changed my life when I had nothing. Yesterday, you showed that same kindness, without thought of reward. This isn't charity, it's my turn to pass on what was given to me. All I ask is that someday, when you can, you'll do the same for someone else. The circle was complete. What had begun with $5 given away at a convenience store counter had multiplied beyond measure, not just in material terms, but in connections formed, lives changed, and possibilities created. Sarah opened her planner to the week's schedule: initiative meetings, classes, Lily's science fair, Sunday dinner at Robert's. A full life built on the foundation of one moment of kindness, hers and Robert's both. On the refrigerator hung Lily's drawing of their Hart family, now expanded to include Carmen and Emma, Margaret, even James and his teenagers. The figures stood hand in hand in front of Robert's mansion, smiles on their faces, a sun shining brightly above. Family wasn't always about blood, Sarah reflected. Sometimes it formed in the most unexpected ways through a chance encounter, a moment of generosity, a recognition of shared humanity. And sometimes, the families we choose become more precious than the ones we're born into. She traced her finger over Lily's childish rendering of Robert, thinking of how much had changed for all of them, from strangers to family, from desperation to hope, from isolated struggle to connected strength. The $5 she'd given away that day had been her last. But in losing it, she'd gained everything that mattered. If this story touched your heart, like and subscribe to our channel. Share it with someone who believes in second chances, and let love grow by passing it on. Have you ever experienced an unexpected act of kindness that changed your life? Comment below and join our community of believers in the power of compassion.